Hello, my name is Bob Davis, coordinator of the Math Center at Alamance Community College, and I'd like to take some time today to talk about how to study and how to take a math or physics test. We'll start by talking about the studying part. A little while ago, we sent a survey to some of our current math and physics students asking them this: what studying advice do you wish that you had been given before taking your first college level math or physics class? And we got a lot of good responses. Summarized in this infographic, the larger words occurred in more of the responses, and the smaller words occurred in fewer, but still occurred quite a lot. And we see right in the middle, practice, practice, and problems. Practice showed up a lot, sometimes capitalized, sometimes not. But a lot of people said it was very important to practice doing the mathematics or the physics. And you'll see other important words about studying around and taking notes and things like that. I want to point out three that occur in order here, but not necessarily in the order they showed up in the different responses. But good teacher physics shows up here, and a shout out to our own Mr. Carr, who is in fact a good teacher of physics. Some specific advice that was given as feedback: take the time to repeatedly practice problems and concepts. There is never such a thing as too much practice. When it comes to college level math and physics courses, it is a pattern and must be practiced numerous times in order for it to be important enough for you to remember. I wish I would have just done more review problems rather than just looking at notes alone. Reserve more time to practice problems and to seek help from a tutor or your teacher. You can always find your teacher or your instructor in their office hours. You can find tutoring in the Math Center and in the Tutoring Center at ACC. The advice throughout everything that we just saw was to practice, 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 to actually do problems, to actually do mathematics or do physics, to prepare for your test. So it's a very important thing to be able to find problems to practice. So I'd like to take a minute to talk about that. One place you might find problems is on a review sheet that was given to you by your instructor, but this is not their responsibility. So if you get one, that's great, and if you don't get one, well, you have other options. Most textbooks contain chapter tests or chapter review problems, and so you can get those out of your textbook too. You can also go back through old homework assignments and old lab problems. One of the nice things about the homework assignments is there's usually a lot of problems you can go back and pick from. One of the nice things about picking old lab problems is, well, those are things your instructor thought were important enough to go on the lab, so they might show up on the test as well. When you're working your review problems, I think it's very important to work them like you're going to on the test. I recommend to my students that they pick enough problems to look like they think the test will look like. I found that students often will put more problems on their test than I'll actually put on the one I write. And then you should take that test timed in the same time limit that you will be given in class. When you're done, you should check over your work and see if you have any questions. Starting this process early is very important because if you take that practice test, you want to have enough time to go by your instructor's office and talk about it if you had questions, or find a tutor to help out. And just as a general note, studying for a college level math or physics test in one night is not enough. You should start early enough, like we just talked about, to talk to your instructor about any problems that you are having. Alright, so now some advice that really just applies to Math 171 at ACC and Math 172, Pre-Calculus Algebra and Pre-Calculus Trigonometry. In the book we're currently using, written by Robert Blitzer, every chapter has a chapter test in the back of it. This is the information your author thinks would be on a test. This is a good place to get those study problems from, but even better than that, each one of these problems has a video solution to it posted in MyMathLab. And you can find those by going into MyMathLab, clicking on the Multimedia Library, picking the correct chapter, and then clicking the button that says Chapter Test Prep Videos. And then you'll see a list like this of videos, where each one of these videos corresponds to a video solution to the corresponding chapter test problem. So 3CTP1 here is the Chapter 3 practice test, problem number 1. And there's a 2-minute 40-second video solution of that problem available to you. So if you take that as a practice test and you had questions about 3 or 4, you could watch these videos and hopefully clear up any confusion that you have. For any other remaining problems you have, you should talk to your instructor or go get tutoring in the Math Center or the Tutoring Center. So this brings us to the part of the video where we're going to talk about how to actually take the test. And again, we got some feedback from some of our current students who are in math and physics classes. What test-taking advice do you wish that you had been given before your first college-level math or physics class? Here's the corresponding infographic, and again, you see a lot of people talk about the problems and having practiced in the past this time. One person mentioned that it's important to get a good night's sleep and to eat a sensible breakfast that morning, and I really like that advice. Here's some of the specific feedback. Manage your time wisely. Take your time. Rushing causes more problems than it solves. So while these are time tests in a lot of these classes, we don't want to be slow, but we need to be deliberate and think about what we're doing. Another quote here, not letting the time get to you and not getting caught up on a problem that I don't know what to do. Scan over all of the questions before getting started. That's really good advice. That gives you an opportunity to pick a problem that you know you can do correctly on the test and build some confidence. Skip problems you're having trouble on and go back to it later. That's also great advice. And we'll come back to this idea in a minute with another corresponding piece of advice. But if you're having a hard time on a problem, just move on to the next one. And here's the one I really like. Eat a good breakfast before heading to class. Be mentally and physically prepared. By physically, I mean sleep early the night before the test and don't stay up late. That's really good advice. All right, so here's some thoughts I had. In a previous version of this presentation, we'd asked some students who came through ACC about 5 years ago for advice, and 3 or 4 of them said, don't freak out. And then they went on to explain what they meant by that is, hey, if you've done the studying part right, when you get to the test, just take a deep breath and it'll be okay. And I know that's way more easily said than done. But the goal here is to be prepared so that when we get to the test, we don't have that moment of panic. The teacher in me makes me want to say, read the directions. Always read all of the directions at the top of the page before you get started and for each problem along the way. You don't necessarily need to work the problems in order unless your instructors told you to do so. If you do the problems out of order, it's really important that you label them very well so your instructor doesn't have a problem finding your work. And remember, partial credit matters. So don't do what I call panic erasing. And this goes back to the skipping problems you're having trouble on. If you're having trouble on a problem and you want to move on, don't erase what you've done. Because just because you're having trouble doesn't mean that there's not something you can earn credit for there. So don't panic erase. Give us something to grade. Alright, so for some final thoughts. Studying for a math test involves doing a lot of problems, then asking questions about where you're still confused. So where can you get help? Well, you can always go to your instructor's office hours, and this is one of the best places for you to get help. Your instructor is going to write that test. Your instructor knows exactly what the material you've been going over is. They are a great resource. The Math Center is also a great resource. The Math Center is located in Main 391 at ACC, and is staffed by instructors and professional tutors, and we're always willing to help. The Math Center is a walk-in environment where we just walk around and let you work self-paced and give you help as you need it. The Tutoring Center is exactly what it says it is, a tutoring center. It's located behind the front desk at ACC. In the Tutoring Center, you can reserve a one-on-one appointment with a tutor to get some help. And then finally, you can form your own study group. And if you form your own study group, one of the places you can work on the stuff as a study group is in the walk-in Math Center. And that way, as you're going through things as a group, if you get stuck, there's help available for you. Well, I hope this has been beneficial for you. Thank you for watching this short video on studying and taking a math test. And more than anything else, good luck on your test this semester.